Shi Yuan caught the ball like it was a hot potato and threw it straight to Yan Zhao next to him. Yan Zhao didn't hesitate and tossed it right back. The two most dazzling young men in the capital pushed my ball back and forth in front of everyone. My father's face darkened instantly and told me to just pick one of them. As I stood there unsure who to choose, comments floated before my eyes. The dead side character better not pick side Yuan. Only Du Saira understands his depth and talent. They share their hearts through endless conversations about Pat. Becoming a consort would ruin his whole life. Don't pick Yan Zhao either. Years ago he was poisoned on the battlefield, and Du Saira saved his life. His heart only has room for his savior. No space for any other woman. I looked up sharply, and sure enough saw clear rejection in their eyes. Then more comments appeared. Side character, look at the crown prince instead. He's worried about the whole sibling thing, so he's buried his feelings for 10 years without saying a word. If the side character picks the crown prince, first thing he'll do after taking the throne is clear out the harem, then send Shi Yuan and Yan Zhao with 2 cups of poison. I suddenly turned to look at my brother. His knuckles were white from clenching, and his deep eyes stared at me with barely contained longing. After I threw the ball, my heart pounded like a drum. My eyes drawn to those 2 familiar figures outside the pavilion. Shaolin, refined as jade, Yan Zhao, wild and carefree. Thinking that one of them would soon be my husband, I felt my cheeks warm. Wait, is the dead side character actually blushing right now? Does she really think Xi Yuan and Yan Zhao would fight over her ball? These 2 agreed on the way here that neither would catch the side character's ball. The one they love is Du Saira. If only the dead side character was a fake princess and the heroine was the real one lost all those years ago. Seeing these cool words hanging in the air, my breath caught. Right then, the ball landed perfectly in Xi Yuan's arms. He threw it to Yan Zhao, like it burned him. Yan Zhao caught it without thinking, and tossed it right back. Right in front of me. Right in front of all the people in the city. They threw my ball back and forth. I stood there frozen. Nails digging into my palms. Completely humid. The unwanted ball rolled all the way to Shi Yuan's feet. He glanced at it coolly. A hint of mockery playing at his lips. Princess Yuking is so high and mighty, yet you need this ball to find a husband. Just write a name on an imperial decree, who would dare refuse you? I promised Cyril I'd take care of her forever. Even as a consort, that promise won't change. His eyes were cold and annoyed. All my earlier joy vanished in an instant. My chest felt like someone was carving into it with a dull knife. Pain so sharp I couldn't breathe. My father couldn't hear Shi Yuan's low words. He just saw him and Yan Zhao refusing the ball. And his face darkened immediately, speaking up to defend me. Hui-King, you've liked these 2 since childhood. Today just pick one as your husband. Whoever you want. I only looked at Xi Yuan for 3 seconds. And his face turned sore. Nasty comments came flying at me. Is the side character blind? Can't she see the disgust written all over Shi Yuan's face? Half a month ago, Du Saira's father was executed for treason and her whole family wiped out. Now outside the palace gates in the pouring rain for 3 days and nights. Willing to give up his top scholar title just to save Du Saira. They were so close to being together. The side character is beyond shameless. Du Saira just went through the worst tragedy. And here she is picking husbands like it's nothing. She deserves this humiliation. In the last life, the side character picked Shi Yuan. The day after the wedding, he set up a separate house with Du Saira outside. They had 3 sons and a daughter. Amina was in the princess mansion. The side character died of a heartbreak in the end. Xi Yuan was celebrating his daughter's first-month birthday when she died. 10 days after she was buried, Xi Yuan brought Du Saira home in the grand 8 sedan chair procession, making up for all her suffering. A cold chill ran through me from head to toe. Xi Yuan and I grew up together. Whenever he got something special, he'd bring it to me first. The old man said hard to get. He'd wait there before dawn, just so I could taste the first steaming batch. I always saw him and Yan Zhao as the only choices for husband. But today, all those warm memories got doused with ice water. Not even a trace of warmth left. Can the side character not pick Yao? Years ago he was poisoned on the battlefield. Du Saira saved him. He said, his heart only has room for his savior. No space for any other woman. In the last life, Yan Du never married for Du Saira's sake, stayed by her side with no title. Just to be near her. Our law say concubes and illegitimate children can't be legitimized. Yan Zhao couldn't bear Du Shi suffering that disgrace, so he traded all his military merit to make her a top scholar's wife. Raised her children as his own. Used his entire general's fortune to pave their way. Turns out neither of them ever wanted me. Heartbroken, I was about to tell my father to call off the wedding. But the comments suddenly became more intense. Side character, look at the restrained crown prince. Hearing you're choosing a husband today is tearing him apart. The crown prince has loved you for 10 years but can't say it because you're siblings. He's buried his feelings so deep. He picked up your ball from the ground and can't bear to let it go. It's you pick him. First thing he'll do after taking the throne is clear out the harem. Then send Yuan and Yan Zhao for 2 cups of poison. I whipped around to look at my brother. He stood on the jade steps in his dark dragon robe. The ball clutched so tightly in his hand, and knuckles white from the pressure. His gaze, deep as a frozen lake, burned hot enough to sear right through me. I remember the day I first met my brother. Mother nearly died giving birth to me and couldn't have more children. When I was 8, the court officials kept pressuring my father about an heir. My father refused to take concubine, so he finally adopted my brother from the usual royal line and made him crown prince. He was quiet, often sat alone by the imperial lake, staring at the water. Mother, what's wrong with brother? Why does he look so sad? Huiking, your brother is homesick. Go keep him company, will you? I ran over and dragged him to fly kites. A strong gust of wind almost pulled him into the lake. Feeling guilty, I made him 7 treasure 5 flavor porridge from Yuzhao. But I added the rice too late. The porridge was undercooked and knocked out his baby tooth. I wanted to make it up to him somehow. He kept saying no need, really no need. But at least I cured him of not talking much. Later he started helping my father govern. We saw each other less and less. Now that cool, reserved boy from my memories overlapped with my brother standing here with burning eyes and surging emotion. My heart shook. A wild idea suddenly became crystal cool. Father, I've decided on my husband. Under everyone's gaze, I walked up to the throne. The marriage decree already spread out on the desk, just waiting for Shi Zhuan or Yan Zhao's name to be filled in. When my father saw the 3 characters I wrote, his expression changed instantly. Hiqing, you. Father, you promised me yourself that no matter who I chose, you'd approve. My father was silent for a long time before speaking slowly. I need to think this through carefully. In the end, my father granted my wish. The imperial seal came down hard on the marriage, leaving a crimson mark on the bright yellow silk. Xi Zhiwan looked at the scroll that would decide his fate and already guessed what it said. A barely visible bitter smile formed on his lips. Your Majesty, may I ask if the princess chose me as her consort? My father glanced at him coldly. Whoever holds the ball is the consort. The light in Xi Zhiwan's eyes died completely. Like dust settling over his eyes, all the brightness gone. Right? That ball didn't end up at his feet. I understand. I'll go prepare for the wedding to the princess. I feel so bad for Shi Zhiwan. When he heard he was the consort, something died in his eyes. Are your ears stuffed with cotton? His Majesty said whoever holds the ball is the consort. Does Shi Zhiwan have the ball? It's not Shi Zhiwan, then the crown prince. The dead side character would only pick between Shi Zhiwan and Yan Zhao, okay? My father had already turned to leave and didn't hear Shi Zhiwan's words. Yan Zhao walked over, expression complicated, and patted him on the shoulder twice. Sorry you got stuck with this, brother. Xi Zhiwan walked up to me looking lost. His first words dripping with sarcasm. Princess, you finally got what you wanted. Send the decree to me in a couple days. Saru is staying at my residence right now. Seeing the marriage decree would break her heart. With that he turned and left. Wouldn't stay even a moment longer. After everyone left, only my brother and I stood facing each other in the empty pavilion. He still held the ball in a daze. His fingers pale from gripping so hard. Whoever holds the ball is the consort. My brother repeated my father's words, his voice trembling with disbelief. What did father mean by that? I smiled sweetly and slowly unrolled the decree in front of him. This marriage decree has both our names on it. My usually composed brother lost his cool for once, shock filling his eyes. Then what about Xi Zhiwan? He assumed he was the consort on his own. When did I say that? My brother pulled me into his arms. I heard his choked whisper. Thank God I was the one who picked up the ball, not someone else. I couldn't help but laugh, saw my fingers gently tracing his trembling back. Brother, you're usually so sharp. How'd you get so foolish just now? Wait. Why would the side character pick the crown prince? Isn't she supposed to use her princess status to force Xi Zhiwan to marry her? This is obviously another one of her manipulative tricks. Writing the crown prince's name on the decree to make Xi Zhiwan and Yan Zhao fight over her so she can marry them both. This is an imperial decree marriage. You think this is pretend? I think the side character really wants to marry the crown prince. Not sure why she changed her mind, but marrying the crown prince beats marrying those 2 players any day. The wedding was set for 3 months later. The palace buzzed with activity. Maids from the costume bureau brought brilliant fabrics to custom fit my wedding dress. The jewelry bureau presented phoenix crown designs for me to choose from. For days, I was completely swamped. My father's head eunuch came with a summons to the government hall. On the way, I heard maids gathered together, whispering about recent gossip. Did you guys hear? That Ji Zhiwan, the princess used to like, actually paid a fortune for monks to hold ceremonies for the traitorous Du family. Not just that, the one Du daughter who survived, Du Sairo, heard Xi Zhiwan was marrying the princess and threw a fit. Young Master Shi felt so bad for her, bought her a whole box of pearls. Those are only for His Majesty and the Empress. How dare he overstep? Isn't the princess about to marry the crown prince? What does Xi Zhiwan have to do with it? The Shi family is so desperate to be royal, they dare make up such lies. The rumors kept spreading. My father naturally heard about them too. Huiking, you didn't pick those 2 as consorts. Is it really because of that traitor's daughter? Seeing the worry and care in my father's eyes, my eyes began to sting. That day I couldn't bear watching Shi Zhiwan kneel in the pouring rain begging. Even though the Du family committed a crime worthy of execution, I still asked my father to spare Du Sarah's life. I shook my head gently. They have no feelings for me. A forced marriage won't work. I won't settle for that. I'd rather choose someone who treats me with genuine sincerity. The crown prince is talented and virtuous, noble in character. We grew up together. Father himself personally taught him, For me, he's a good match. Our girl finally sees how great the crown prince is. He won't have to give every girl a hairpin anymore, just to cover up giving one to the female. The crown prince at the imperial decree and couldn't sleep for several nights from excitement. He hugged the marriage decree with his eyes wide as saucers. The female lead is just being stubborn. She can't compete with Dusar, so she's making excuses to save face. How miserable is your life that you can't stand seeing the princess happy? Father was silent for a moment, then handed me several memorials. They were all impeaching Xi Zhiwen. Defending convicted of colluding with the enemy, accused of harboring treasonous intention. Father needn't worry about me. I said quietly. Coming out of the hall of village, Princess Jinyang from the Prince Jin's manor was already waiting outside. With your wedding coming up, instead of preparing, you have time to invite me shopping. Workshop just got a batch of jewelry designs on seeing in the capital. I'd like you to help me pick some for the wedding, and also pick out some fabric for the crown prince. Jinyang's eyes immediately sparkled with playful amusement. My face suddenly burned. I quickly pulled her onto the carriage. Let's go. You should have done this long ago. Those two heartless men aren't worthy of you. They can't compare to the crown prince who's like the moon and breeze. Inside the golden jade workshop, I had just picked out 2 hairpins when I heard a familiar voice at the door. Ziwen, that ruby hairpin I mentioned last time is from this shop. Shopkeeper, bring out the hairpin so I can look at it again. Dusairu walked in intimately holding Sai Ziwen's arm. The shopkeeper looked up. I was slowly and deliberately fingering that very ruby hairpin with its flowing brilliance. Xingqi Zouan walked up to me and held out his hand. Princess Sir has admired this hairpin for a long time. In the future, as the legitimate wife, you should be magnanimous. Just let Sir have it. As he spoke, he actually took the hairpin from my hand and placed it on Dusairu's head. I looked up, my gaze ice cold. Say Ziwen, why on earth should I give up this hairpin? Ziwen didn't expect me to embarrass him in public. His face in that. So why must you target Sir at every turn? Whatever she likes, you have to take it away. A few days ago it was a person, today it's a hairpin. Even though you're a princess, you shouldn't be so willful. If you can't tolerate other women in my household, I should go back and discuss with mother whether getting engaged to the princess was a mistake. I coldly glanced at him. Perhaps the coldness and contempt in that glance were too obvious. Xi Zhiwen froze on the spot. Is young Master Shibu? This hairpin was in my hand just now. You're the one who reached out like a beggar and asked me for it, so who exactly is taking from whom, snatching from whom? Face turned red and white at being called a beggar. He was momentarily speechless. Dusairu pulled his sleeve at just the right moment and gently advised. Important matters come first. So Joan's President said in a low voice, I have something to discuss with you. Is now bearing her family's guilt. She's alone and helpless in the capital. I plan to officially bring her into the manor soon to look after her. To prevent her from being dispatched by servants in the manor. I want to bring her in before the wedding. What do you think? Fun. I answered simply and decisively. Ziwen had prepared many arguments. My 2 casual words blocked them all. I was stunned on the spot. 有事同你商议啊? I didn't bother to say more. I pulled the ruby hairpin from Dusairu's hair, took Jinyang's hand, and left. Leaving Xi Zhiwen standing there alone. As soon as we left the shop, Jinyang couldn't contain her confusion and looked at me. I smiled faintly. Who he marries has nothing to do with me. Once he really brings that trader's daughter to his door, you just watch. Which noble family in the capital will still be willing to marry their legitimate daughter to him? Just as I finished speaking, someone stopped in front of me and respectfully bowed. Greetings, Pang Shanguang, Minister of Revenue. Hearing that the princess and crown prince's wedding is approaching, I congratulate you on this chance encounter. His voice rang out loud and clear, carrying into the shop. Xi Zhiwen, who was accompanying Dusairu in selecting jewelry, suddenly froze. He almost immediately rushed out. But on the bustling street, those figures from moments ago were already gone. Dusairu followed closely and asked uneasily, Ziwen, what's wrong? Ziwen frowned tightly, his gaze still unwillingly searching the street corner. Nothing, I just thought I heard an extremely absurd congratulation. Suppressed the inexplicable panic in his heart. When he turned around, his expression was already gentle. Don't worry about it, I probably heard wrong. Let's go, since I promised to pick out some jewelry you like, I can't go back on my word. The 2 of them visited every famous jewelry shop in the capital. It wasn't until dusk that they returned to the Xian Manor carrying packages large and small. In the main hall, Duke Xi sat in the seat of honor, his face dark. As he saw Xi Ziwen, he pointed him in uncontrollable fury and condemned him. You dared to hold memorial services for someone who colluded with the enemy and betrayed the nation. Are you trying to make the entire Xi family pay for your actions? Dusairu's eyes reddened and she immediately knelt down. Every mistake is Siri's fault. If I've implicated Zhuan, Sire has no choice but death. Duke Xi didn't even glance at her, his gaze stabbed directly at Zhuan like a knife. Me to the palace today and said bluntly that the Xi Manor harbors treasonous intention. To preserve the clan, I've already requested to resign from office. Your top scholar title has also been stripped. Our Duke's manor isn't what it used to be. Now we've even lost the Salt Commissioner position. The Xi family will probably be ruined in your hands. Zhuan frowned. Can't Father see clearly? The princess is just throwing a tantrum. It tolerates so she deliberately had His Majesty precious as punishment. A few days ago, His Majesty personally bestowed our marriage. After wedding, all this glory and power will return. Sai Zhuan naturally still thought the princess chose him as her consort. No news of the princess and the prince's wedding has spread throughout the palace. If he spent less attention on Dusairu, he wouldn't be so out of touch. I always thought the female lead wasn't good enough for him, but now hearing his arrogant words, I think the crown prince and princess are actually a match made in heaven. Duke Xi's sense of foreboding grew stronger. You keep talking about the marriage decree, why hasn't the imperial edict arrived after all these days? Could the princess's chosen consort be Yan Zhao? Xi Xiwan laughed mockingly. I asked the princess to delay the announcement. If Yang Zhi really received the marriage decree, knowing his temperament, he'd probably have raised hell by now. Duke Xi suddenly remembered that today in the palace, the head eunuch beside his majesty smiled at him meaningfully and said, Congratulations, your grace, happy occasion approaches for your manner. Thinking of this, he forcibly suppressed his anger. I'll prepare the betrothal gift list tonight. Tomorrow you'll personally deliver it to the princess's maid. Understood. I also heard in the palace today that the crown prince is about to wed. He's always doted on his sister. As her consort, you must visit him often. When Xi Zhuan heard the words crown prince's wedding, the congratulation he heard at the Golden Jade workshop suddenly flashed through his mind. A flicker of emotion crossed his eyes. It seems tomorrow he needs to pay a visit to the Shen Manor. The third quarter of the hour of the pig, Duke had someone deliver the betrothal gift list to Shuan's room. Du Sire looked at the jade and jewels listed on the gift list and cried silently. If my family hadn't met with disaster, I'd have parents preparing my dowry too. Xiwan would properly deliver betrothal gifts, instead of in a few days being carried in through the side door at night in a small sedan chair. 中让案件里 pulled her into his arm. I promised you, once I enter office, the first thing I'll do is retry the Du family case. His gaze swept over the gift list. Since our ceremony comes first, the betrothal gift should rightfully go to you. The princess's portion, I'll have father prepare separately. Du Sire nestled in his embrace, deeply moved. I never dared hope to wear red wedding robes again, but a woman's wedding happens only once. I really don't want to have regrets. She looked up at him with teary eyes timidly. I'm afraid the court historian will impeach me and implicate the Duke's manners reputation. Could you announce the princess on my behalf? To lend me her ceremonial wedding attire to wear. If it's personally bestowed by the princess, others won't dare say. Xiwan gently stroked her face, wiping away her tears with his knuckles, and softly replied, All right. Tomorrow I'll speak with the princess about it. The guard outside announced that Xi Zhuan requested an audience. I was embroidering love knots for the wedding. Hearing this, I didn't even lift my eyes. I simply told someone to send him away. Today is old General Yan's birthday, Ben. Other than mother's orders, I personally went to the manor to present congratulatory gifts. Yan Zhao's grandfather once fought alongside my imperial grandfather. A lifetime of military service is a venerable elder to arrange respected throughout the court. I had just taken my seat at the banquet when Du Sire gracefully approached. Ru bows and greets you. Hers immediately arose from all around. That's the daughter of the Du family who colluded with the enemy. I hear she's staying at the Xi Manor now and will soon be taken as a concubine. Bringing an unofficial concubine to an occasion like that. The Xi family's reputation is truly eye-opening. That greeting seems designed to make sure everyone knows her relationship with young Master Xi is intimate. I turned my head slightly and gave my personal maid Cheng Tao a look. She immediately understood and stepped forward, delivering 2 crisp slaps. Righteous. Cheng Tao sharply, a trader's daughter, dares to falsely claim sisterhood with the princess. Where does that leave His Majesty's and Her Majesty's dignity? Du Sire covered her reddened cheeks as tears streamed down. I was thinking that in the future we'd both be in the same manner. That's why I greeted you first. Sire doesn't understand propriety. Zhuan, please don't blame the princess. The female lead is such a schemer. Her attempt to squirt his tooth. What gives Zhuan the status to blame the princess? Xi only allows legitimate wives to attend. Du Sire pestered Zhuan to bring her along. She just wants everyone to know she's the one in Xi Yuan's heart. Such ridiculous tat. An unmarried princess publicly called sister by a trader's daughter. This is clearly meant to embarrass her. Do you have to be so harsh? The Du family was executed, only Du Sire is left. She's pitiful enough. As a concubine, she's not qualified to attend General Yan's banquet. What's wrong with using her skills to get Xi Yuan to bring her? Isn't this the strong female lead you all keep talking about? Fighting with all your might for what you want isn't shameful. Ridiculous, the Du family's treason was proven beyond doubt. Execution was well deserved. What's there to pity? Was entertaining guests rushed over upon hearing the commotion, anger between his brows. Princess, today is my grandfather's birthday. Why must you publicly embarrass Seru? She's my honored guest. Today she's qualified to sit at the head table with you. Her status is no lower than yours. These words, the entire hall was shocked. Guests cast looks of disbelief. Jake's daughter seated at the same table as the princess and the venerable elder of Turin. I lightly touched my teacup and spoke slowly. The Du family, for personal greed, sold border defense intelligence to the enemy. Thousands of soldiers fell into ambush and were barely fought. My gaze fell on Yan Zhao's tense face, word by word. So, General Yan's loyalty and patriotism, the Yan family's generations of faithful service, you haven't inherited even a bit. Yan Zhao's face flushed. He stood there frozen. At this moment, old General Yan arrived leaning on his cane. His gaze swept over Du Sire like ice. So you're the daughter of that treasonous minister. His Majesty showed mercy that day and spared your life instead of being grateful. You dare step through my Yan Manor's door. Get out of this old man's banquet immediately. Seeing Yan Zhou still wanting to plead, the old general's heavy wooden staff struck the ground. Take this unfilial grandson away, 20 strikes with the rock. Du Ru hung her head and wept, standing in place and refusing to move. Xi Zhuan quickly stepped forward to shield her behind him, lowering his voice to speak to me. Princess, There's something I need to discuss with you. His gaze drifted toward the corridor. His intent was obvious. I sat still. Young Master Shi, if you have something to say, speak here. Xi Ziyuan's expression darkened. He didn't want to bring this up in public and was about to postpone it. But Duru, her eyes red and swollen, leaned close to his ear. Ziyuan, today is the best opportunity. In front of all these people, the princess will have to maintain her virtuous reputation and agree. Our wedding is approaching, and the princess and I have different builds. So the wedding dress will need to be altered by the seams. Xi Ziyuan pondered for a moment, then finally spoke. Since you've agreed to let Ru enter first, could you also lend her your bridal regalia to wear? Though ancestral rules say concubines cannot wear red. If you personally grant permission, it won't be breaking protocol. You two sharing one wedding dress, when word gets out, it'll be a romantic tale. After Ru enters the next day, I'll prepare all 6 betrothal gifts and set a wedding date with you. I slowly raised my eyes, my lips curling into a frosty smile. Xi Ziyuan, have I been too lenient with you? My wedding dress is not for her to touch. Xi Ziyuan's face went cold. I swept my sleeves and ordered the guards for. Show young master Xi out. Ru felt utterly wronged. Pointing at me, she cried out. If the princess doesn't want to, fine, but why humiliate people like this? Her body went limp, and she fainted right into Xi Ziyuan's arms. After examining her pulse, the physician, Miss Tu suffers from depleted blood and energy. 2 doses of medicine to help her recover. If possible, there's a hot spring resort, 200 miles east, that would greatly benefit her condition. Xie Wan immediately scooped up Duru. He didn't even bother to take leave from old General Yan and turned to Li's. As he left, he shot me a glance. His eyes were full of disappointment. The guests watched his outrageous behavior, keeping straight faces while mocking him inwardly. Yan raised his wine cup. My apologies for the spectacle. Don't let trivial matters spoil the mood. Let me drink first. Several officials immediately raised the cups in response. The music started up again. The lively atmosphere quickly returned. By the next day, this farce had spread throughout the capital. I remained in my residence calmly embroidering love knot. Chang Tao brought up a letter. The sender was Xi Ziyuan. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. He said he and Duru had arrived at the hot spring resort. Ru was weak and needed several days of treatment to recover. After she recovered, the two would travel to see the south. Every line dripped with leisure. He said he'd chosen the 8th day 2 months from now to marry Duru. They would return to the capital on the eve of the wedding. He instructed me to handle the wedding arrangement. I held the corner of the ledger, smiled coldly, and held it to the candle flame. The fire instantly curled up, consuming all that absurdity. What a coincidence. His auspicious date was the same one I'd chosen. As the letter burned out, I picked up my embroidery and continued. After that, every 2 days Xi Ziyuan sent a letter. Sometimes writing about how lovely the misty rain in Yanzhou. Describing how stunning the moonlight over West Lake. Saying he'd definitely take me to see them someday. At the end of every letter, Xi Ziyuan never forgot to ask, how are the wedding preparations coming along? I burned every one of these letters. For the next 2 months, I devoted all my attention to my wedding with my brother. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the eve of the wedding. I was having an intimate conversation with Jin Yang, chatting about the young woman's nervousness and hopes before marriage. A palace attendant announced the crown prince had arrived. I couldn't help but be surprised. Why would my brother come at this hour? He entered the inner hall and gently placed an oil paper package before me. Opening it revealed freshly baked peach blossom cakes. And those candied hawthorns I'd eaten since childhood. My brother came in the middle of the night just to bring me this. He touched his nose a bit shyly, his gaze turning to the attendants behind him. Soon, several heavy rosewood chests were carried into the hall. They filled nearly half the room. I stared at these sudden lavish gifts, stunned. He explained gently, the betrothal gifts from the Ministry of Rights fall unsaid. These are my private assets I've accumulated over the years. Today I give them all to you as my betrothal gifts. How can this be? As heir apparent, you can't be without money. You is already my good fortune of 3 lifetimes, I only wish I had more to give. After telling me to rest early, he reluctantly left. Jin Yang smiled at my side. And only then did I realize my cheeks were burning, even my ears had turned red. Later Chang Tao told me the lights in the Eastern Palace burned until dawn. My brother's personal guard also revealed he was too excited to sleep all night. Xi Ziyuan returned to the Duke's residence on his wedding eve. Stepping through the gate, he saw the courtyard look the same as always. Not a trace of wedding joy. He frowned slightly and asked the steward in a low voice, hasn't the princess come to prepare for the wedding? The steward bowed and replied, young master, since you left the capital, the princess hasn't set foot in the residence once. Xian's tone was displeased. She's getting more and more willful. Acting so petulantly, how can I trust her to manage the Duke's residence? Get people to hand the red silk immediately and paste up the happiness characters. The residence must look like a wedding is happening. Tomorrow all the nobles of the capital will come. We can't be laughed at. The steward looked hesitant. But what about the Duke? With father away on business in Shu, I'm in charge of the residence now. Zhiwen's tone broke no argument. Duru recalled Wu Qijin passing the princess's residence earlier. She twisted her handkerchief, saying worriedly, Zhiwen, on our way back. I think I saw the princess's residence covered in red silk. What if tomorrow the princess sends people to take me away, and she marries you instead? Xi Ziyuan froze, a complex look flashing through his eyes. I saw the princess residence covered in red silk and happiness characters. Before Duru could speak, the steward bowed and reported. These past 2 months the princess's residence has indeed been preparing a wedding. This old servant assumed the young master already knew. Xie Yuan sighed and frowned reproachfully. She's getting more and more ridiculous. What's the harm in entering a day later? Fine, I can understand she's upset. After we marry, I'll bring her in as soon as possible. Duru spoke softly, her tone gentle. After the princess enters, I'll definitely be like sisters with her and never make things difficult for you, Zhiwen. Zhiwen's expression softened slightly. You're the sense. He thought for a moment, then said, tomorrow we need someone to watch the princess and keep her from causing trouble. Shi Zhiwen thought for a moment, then went with Duru to General Yan's residence. He knew old General Yan disliked Duru, so he specifically asked only Yan Zhao to come out. Tomorrow is my wedding with Ru. The princess might come to interfere. Could you go to the princess's residence and stop? Yan Zhao looked at Duru's slightly reddened eyes and pointed his spear toward the princess's residence. Alright. He took out a gift list from his robe. Ru, this is the dowry I've prepared for you. I promised I'd protect you for life. From now on, the general's residence will be your family home. Duru's eyes filled with tears as she stepped forward and gently embraced Yao. Zhao, thank you. Hu Ting, it's time to get up and dress. At first light, mother came personally to wake me. The attendants carefully arranged my hair. Housemaids entered in a line carrying the bridal regalia. I gazed at myself in full dress in the mirror. When the phoenix crown adorned with pearls settled in my hair, I couldn't help but nervously clench my palms. Mother comforted me, telling me not to be nervous. Your father says Mo is even more excited than you. He didn't sleep a wink last night. He dragged the guards out to practice swordplay in the courtyard all night. Thinking of my brother last night delivering betrothal gift, then going back to practice swordplay with guards all night, I couldn't help but laugh softly. Chang Tao whispered in my ear, Princess, just as you predicted, young General Yan has been guarding outside since early morning. I smiled slightly, let him stand guard, don't bother with him. The sound of ceremonial music came from outside. My brother's wedding procession had arrived. He stood at the steps in bright red wedding robes, his gaze burning as he extended his hand to me. I gently placed my hand in his palm, letting him help me into the bridal sedan. Yan Zhao had meant to stop me, but when he saw it was the crown prince's wedding procession, he froze in place as if paralyzed. He suddenly remembered his grandfather's unfinished words that day. The princess's chosen husband was the crown prince, young General Yan. A palace maid quietly approached him and handed him a letter. The princess ordered us to deliver this letter to you. Yan Zhao took the letter. I knew it, she wouldn't give up so easily. Before he finished speaking, his gaze locked onto something in the letter. He stood frozen as if struck by lightning. This can't be. The one who saved me on the battle was clearly Ru. How could it be the princess? She's a palace lady. How would she know medicine? The palace maid scoffed. Young General Yan doesn't know, but the princess has studied medicine. Seeing her natural talent allowed her to study under the medicine king Bao. When she saved you at the border, the princess was on her way to visit the medicine king. Yan Zhao could no longer hear what she was saying. Only a sharp ringing remained in his. Everything before his eyes began spinning and blurring. He staggered and collapsed straight to the ground. The palace maid glanced at him indifferent, her skirts brushing past the stone pavement without pause. The wedding procession moved through the main street as crowds gathered to watch. On tiptoes to congratulate, women pointed at the second and chatted happily, and old folks murmured auspicious words. My brother rode before the scene, turning back from Tan, his gaze falling on me. Arriving at the ancestral temple, the procession stopped. My brother and I went hand in hand to pay respects to heaven. At dusk, the bridal sun was carried smoothly into the eastern palace. When the nuptial wine was served, my brother whispered softly, remember when you were little and stole peach blossom cakes? Your mouth was covered in sugar frosting. I couldn't help but smile. The sharp taste of the wine turned sweet on my lips. In the bridal chamber, red candles burned high as he removed my heavy phoenix crown. I'd waited too long for this day. Side though the moonlight grew brighter, casting the room's joy in an even softer glow. The next morning, my brother and I entered the palace to pay respects to father and mother. The two elders were overjoyed, sending rewards flowing like water into the eastern palace. Every palace attendant wore a smile. Wedding joy filled every corner. But at the duke's residence, it was a different scene entirely. Duru was straightening Xiwen's collar. A thin worry clouded her expression. I'm sorry, we only just married yesterday, and today I have to go discuss the wedding date with the princess. Duru looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. The princess is of noble birth. After she enters the residence, I'm truly worried. Xiwen comforted her gently. Don't worry, even if she enters, it won't affect our feelings. On the way to the prince's residence, the betrothal procession moved slowly through the capital street. Xiwen suddenly remembered something, his lips curving slightly. I didn't think Yan Zhao would really stop the princess. She actually didn't cause trouble yesterday. The princess is right. Servants were cleaning up yesterday's wedding decorations. Yesterday the princess got married. The way the crown prince looked at our princess was sweet enough to drip honey. The crown prince is usually so serious, but that was the first time I saw him smile so happily. Ziwan caught every word. He froze in place, his face suddenly pale. He forced himself to stay calm in the store. Please announce we have an appointment with the princess. I'll come today to present betrothal gifts and set a wedding date. The steward looked him up and down in surprise. Did this gentleman not see the red silk at the gate? The princess married His Highness the Crown Prince yesterday. What kind of betrothal gifts are you bringing here? For some reason, a surge of nameless fury suddenly rose in Xin Yuan's chest. They're siblings. How can they get married? The butler frowned, his tone turning. Princess and the Crown Prince aren't blood relatives. What's wrong with them marrying? Don't cause trouble here. Leave now. Yuan recalled the details he'd overlooked. The red silk hung early at the princess's residence. News of the crown prince marrying the crown princess, and the imperial marriage decree that never arrived. He suddenly clenched his fists. A burning rage rushed straight to his heart. She promised to wait for him to bring the betrothal guest. How could she break her word? What's he so mad about? Didn't he keep saying he didn't like the princess? Wanting it both ways, he couldn't let go of his sweetheart, yet he coveted the princess's power and status. He's the one reaping the benefits, but he kept making the princess compromise, and he took advantage of the princess's favoritism and wronged her in every way. He thought the princess would always wait for him in the same place. Now he's in for a shock. Bugger left the palace after dining with Father Emperor and Mother Empress. The carriage couldn't lift. I stepped down from the carriage in bright red palace attire. Stood quietly outside the residence gate. Then 10 sets of betrothal gifts were neatly arranged. He stepped forward, opening with a demand. Why would you demean yourself like this, princess? I know you're angry I let Sire marry first, but you shouldn't rashly marry in a fit of spite and ruin your lifelong happiness. If you're willing to divorce, I'll pretend today never happened. You'll still be the legitimate wife of my duke's resident. I was speechless. The corner of my mouth couldn't help but twitch. I declared the female official beside me to go to the duke's residence with a message. Tell the duke, who just returned to the capital, to report to strictly discipline his son. Don't come to the eastern palace causing trouble. Seeing this, anger grew even fiercer. If you insist on not divorcing today, you'll regret it someday. He turned and left in anger, but his steps revealed a bit of panic. I didn't want to hear anything about Xi Zhiyuan anymore. Yet news about him spread wildly throughout the capital. Yesterday, on his way home, accidentally crashed into the carriage of the Prime Minister's youngest son, Lin Yubai, this famous playboy of the capital. In the past, he might have let it go out with silver Prince Constance. But now, behind Xi Zhiyuan, there's only an empty shell of a duke's residence. Lin Yubai immediately ordered his men to beat him in the street. Xi Zhiyuan tried to argue, but the other side wouldn't reason at all. This his injured body to the Prime Minister's residence, wanting the Prime Minister to discipline his son properly. Who knew he couldn't even get through the door and was mocked by the gatekeeper instead? What are you to dare seek an audience with the Prime Minister? Shi Zhu had never suffered such humiliation. He went straight to the court of judicial review to file a complaint. But the minister of the court was promoted by the Prime Minister himself. He only offered empty words, then ordered someone to send him out. After repeated setbacks, Xi Zhiyuan fell ill. When he recovered, he returned to the academy, determined to take the oaths again for an official position. He'd make those who looked down on him regret it. His old classmates who used to follow him around, now every single one had changed their tune. Brother Zhiyuan, what were you thinking? You had a princess of noble status to marry but didn't. Instead you married the criminal's daughter. Did you lose your mind, haha? Now in the capital, who doesn't avoid Xi Zhiyuan like the plague? The Xi family's gate, even the birds won't perch there anymore. I heard the crown prince petitioned his majesty today. Vowed to only marry the princess in this life, never taking concubines or consorts. Such devotion truly makes others envious. Unable to bear the mockery, Xi Zhiyuan, for the first time ever, hid in the tavern to drown his sorrows. If I'd married the princess first and then taken a concubine, would I have ended up in this situation? He'd still be the young master Xi everyone flattered. Everyone who saw him would have to be respectful. No need to worry about achievements or career. He could go straight to the Ministry of Personnel. Within a few years, he'd gradually reach the highest positions of power. Xi Zhiyuan poured drink after drink down his throat, drinking day and night without stop. I came back from Jin Yang's place. I saw Yan Zhou standing outside the Eastern Palace gate, waiting for a long time. He seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Gong was the spirited air of the young general from before. Even his steps carried a heavy weight. Yao's voice was hoarse. I went back to the place where I was poisoned. I met an old woman. She said the one who saved me back then was you. You brought me back from death's door. I couldn't even recognize my true savior. And I heard you over and over for Dusa. I have no face to appear before you again. I've already petitioned His Majesty to guard the border forever. I'll never return to the capital in this life. Before I leave, I have one question to ask you. He looked up, his eyes holding one last glimmer of hope. Not caring whether you were married before, would you be willing to give me one more chance? Silence filled the palace gate. My silence was already the best answer. A self-mocking arc appeared on Yan Zhao's lips. I'll silently protect the princess from the border. I'll never marry in this life. If you need help in the future, just send one letter. I'll come at full gallop. I frowned and interrupted him. Whether you marry or not is your own choice. Don't say things like never marrying for me. Such words only make me uncomfortable. They don't move me at all. Yan Zhao bowed deeply, his robe billowed in the wind. Then he turned and left, never looking back. I finally had a few peaceful days today. I went to Jinyu workshop to relax. Unexpectedly, the news and rushed over to corner me at the entrance. I've already sent Seru to the manor. From now on, she won't come between you and me. Will you divorce the crown prince? No. Why not? His voice suddenly rose. The obstacle between us is gone now. What's been between us was never Du Seru. It was you. The day of the embroidered ball toss, you knew I'd lose all face before the entire city. But you and Yan Zhao still tossed the ball back and forth like a toy. Because you were certain I wouldn't leave. It was just your test of obedience, wasn't it? Mentat, having his thoughts exposed, flashed across Shi Zhuan's face. I'd already ordered someone to summon Duke Sai. He hurried over. After greeting me, he turned and slapped Xi Zhiyuan across the face. How long will you keep humiliating yourself? The princess treated you with sincerity back then. You didn't cherish it. Now you've lost everything and suddenly pretend to be devoted. After speaking, he actually raised his cane and beat Xi Zhiyuan all the way from the street back to the Duke's residence. After returning, he tried shut himself in for days on end, locking himself in his room. This time, a servant reported that concubine Du, who'd been sent to the manor. How long will you keep humiliating yourself? The princess treated you with sincerity, you didn't cherish it. You lost everything and suddenly pretended to be devoted. Soon after, the academy officially expelled him. All his belongings were thrown outside the gate. Filled with resentment, vowed to secure an official position. If he reached the highest rank someday, he'd make me regret my choice today. But he soon discovered that without power and connections, finding work in the capital was nearly impossible. He finally secured a position at the Ministry of Personnel, but it was just a menial job. The petty clerks he once looked down on could now order him around at will. The humiliation seized Yuan resigned in anger. After that, he wouldn't even step outside the residence. Today, he curled up in his room, mumbling through drunken haze. If I'd known it would come to this, I should never have thrown that embroidered ball. Days after the wedding were warmer than I'd imagined. Every day after court, my imperial brother didn't rush to handle state affairs. Instead, he'd first pull a warm old paper package from his sleeve. The paper was carefully wrapped. When opened, it still steamed faintly. Fresh oils meant the sugar cake. Try it quick. When dusk came, if I'd known it would come to this, I should never have thrown that embroidered ball. He sat at his rosewood desk reviewing the memorial. I lay on the couch reading medical texts. Sometimes he'd set down his vermilion brush and walk over to refill my tea, leaning down to glance at the prescription I was studying. When I looked up, I'd always meet his smiling gaze, quietly meeting in the deepening twilight.
Fresh